Wow, Leafs Nation butted up against the salary cap. Where's the future of the Leafs? Is Sheldon Keefe fired? Should Kyle Dubas be gone? Should the core be traded? What overreactions need to occur in order for the Toronto Maple Leafs to finally get over the first round? Well, I'm here to tell you, as an outside party who's not in Leafs Nation, who's not succumbed to the Leafs media bubble, who knows a thing or two about hockey, I don't think you should overreact. If anything, I think you should try to keep the band together. Let's talk about it. So let's start from the top down. Kyle Dubas. Kyle Dubas has now amassed the best team in Leafs history in terms of points and wins. He has done some cap maverick pieces. Like any other general manager, has he made mistakes? Of course he has. This is what happens when you push all in. Remember another team that you don't like very much that won a Stanley Cup, the Boston Bruins? They traded Tyler Seguin out of nowhere after trading their captain in Joe Thornton, after getting Phil Kessel in. These guys have churned and burned players all over the place. They hit 3 draft picks that didn't even come close after things. There are examples of general managers like this all up and down the board. No general manager is perfect, but when it comes to Kyle Dubas, he has hit more home runs than he has hit foul balls or strikeouts. I think Kyle Dubas should stay. Let me tell you why. Before I tell you why, though, why don't you go ahead and smash subscribe, smash join Leafs Nation. Look, you may be out of the playoffs, but of course we're going to talk about the Leafs. We always talk about the Leafs. We give you an alternative view outside of the GTA and the Leafs Nation market. We offer the best in pragmatic hockey analysis, breakdown, general manager thought, and cap advice. So if you want to be with us, subscribe, join. Let's be together. I know it's an emotional time, but we'll get through this. I'll help you out. Also, if you're new to things like Twitch and other places out there, YouTube is really trying to corner the world. They have a membership page. They have a super like page down below as well. So if you want to join and support Coach Ryan D, get more interaction with the coach, ask specific questions about the Leafs, or even have me make a video for you, go ahead, hit our join button down below for our membership page. Or if you just like the content and you want to support, there are things called super thanks down there. So YouTube is growing. It's becoming a one-stop shop for content. Content will always be free down here. This is the way. You don't have to go to any other sites. We can keep it all in one ecosystem so you know where to come to. This will always be free content, the best in hockey content. You just show different ways to support Coach Ryan D. Any way helps. It can be free with a thumbs up or subscribe, or it can be a membership or a super thanks down below if you're feeling generous. Okay, Leafs Nation, let's get back to Dubas. So we all know about Nick Ritchie. He shot a shot, he missed. Nick Ritchie's a bum. I thought Ritchie was good. We all thought about Foligno. You guys love when I say names wrong. I thought that was a great trade. Swing and a miss. Who knew? It happens. Again, Boston Bruins brought in Thomas Caberlet, some guy you're very familiar with. He ended up winning a cup. Was a bum with Boston. Sometimes when players trade teams, you just don't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. Dubas didn't see it coming. However, he hit on a lot. Go ahead and look at the depth of this roster. This is no longer just a top 4 team held out by the big 4 players. Mikheyev is on this roster. David Kampf is on this roster. Kasha is on this roster, although always concussed, but he's there. Engvall has developed into a player in the middle 6 that could also play on the 4th line and be a massive contributor. So let's call him a bottom 9 guy. Very versatile player, and you can't replace that size. Kyle Clifford, I kind of think he's a bum. Look, people may like him. They like the toughness, but I love the Spezza and Blackwell combination there. I think you all did too. You got some really good prospects kicking around in there. Unfortunately, couldn't sign Matthew Nyes. You all know my feelings about that. Nyes should have signed. I'll link that video at the end of this. There's a whole bunch of people that go, hey, let the kid go back to school. No, stay, play pro, make some money. That's the way it goes. You can always go back to school at any time with all the money you make from your pro contracts. But great draft pick. Kyle Dubas, the whole point of that is Kyle Dubas hits on draft picks with guys like that. Michael Bunting, 26-year-old Calder Trophy winner possibly. Hey, whatever. Yes, please. We'll take him. Great addition. So as we look down this roster, I think he's compiled one of the deepest teams in the league. I don't think this is a group that is just hailed by a top 4, but let's go ahead and talk about the top 4, shall we? Obviously, Matthews and Marner gained a lot of controversy with the amount of money they spent, but they contributed in the playoffs finally. Like I said, it takes young guys, and I said this a while ago, Leafs fans. If you've been with us for some time, you get it. If you're new here, you don't. That's okay. You'll catch up. There's no quizzes on this channel. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner just needed time and seasoning in the playoffs. I think they had a great round one this one. Sure, they exited, but they did their job. They were as good as they needed to be. You have a likely Hart Trophy winner, at the very least, a Hart finalist in Austin Matthews on your team. So Dubas has done a good job. Is their contract a little expensive? Depends who you ask. Sometimes when they play, I think it's fair, and sometimes I think it's a little bit on the high end. But at the end of the day, you had to lock up your two best players. And what would any of you done? Would you have let them walk? Probably not. Let's be honest. John Tavares, that signing was very controversial. There is a blessing and a curse to being in Leafs Nation in a city like Toronto or any of the big major markets. It doesn't matter if it's New York, Boston, Montreal. When big players like Tavares come available, people start chattering, and those players want to go to big markets. So when you have a guy who is a former first overall pick shopping around and he comes to your team like he did, and you go to him and you go, maybe there's something we can do. And he says, hey, I took a discount last time. I'm worth a lot of money. That a lot of money is $11 million a year. It's an unfortunate place for a general manager to be in. If you say no and don't sign this guy to the cap and you lose, you're torched, you lose your job, you're fired if you don't bring in a guy like that. If you do bring him in and you don't win, people are looking at you going, why did you do that to the salary cap? Blah, 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 blah. It's a no-win situation when you're in a big market like that, because elite players like that need to get paid and you need elite players to help you win. And having that 1-2 punch at center is helpful. How can we see that? Well, okay, Tavares had a little bit of struggles this year. He had a little bit of struggles in the first couple games. It didn't matter. The Leafs were up. When Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner went quiet, who carried you? Captain John Tavares. When you think about young guys like Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, who's the captain? Who needs to be a guy in that room not named Jason Spezza that's a veteran, wears the C and calms the guys down? John Tavares. Who is a guy that's going to help a former first-round pick graduate into the player he needs to be? How about another former first-round pick, John Tavares? There's a lot of reasons to have a guy like that on your team. So when Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews went a little bit cold there, John Tavares carried, had the pedigree, and he showed up because big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. What else would you have had Dubas do? I would have signed the guy as well. Nylander, our favorite guy. People are controversial about him because when he's there, he's a game breaker. When he's not, he goes to sleep. He has defensive woes. But you saw it again in the playoffs. When you need him to step up, he steps up. And again, Tavares and Nylander step up and balance out when Marner's and Matthews can't. And that is what we call depth. You need to have depth in your elite spot. So 4 elite players plus a ton of depth down this roster. Guys like Kerfoot, I forgot to mention him. These are awesome, awesome roster pieces. Now, can the Leafs actually keep this together? Stay tuned. We're going to go to Cap Friendly. We'll take a look at the rosters and the contracts, but I think Kyle Dubas should stay. That's the point. Oh, and before we move on, are we all surprised at the defensive depth of this team? He's done a really good job. Liljegren, Sandin may not have been there, but I'm still looking forward to him. Labushkin, hopefully he re-signs. Muzzin, Riley, Brody, bringing in Giordano. Again, just wins all around for Dubas. I think Dubas should stay. I think it should be a short conversation, year-end interview. I think he's the right guy to go forward for the Leafs. Sheldon Keefe, Kyle Dubas's best buddy. These guys have been together for quite some time, and there's a lot of people, especially when you got to see the insight. Sheldon Keefe is too nice. I agree with that. Sheldon Keefe spends too much time pandering to his players. Sheldon Keefe spends too much time worrying about what his players think, and he's a real motivator. He's a guy that gets in there. He's a guy that can help develop young guys, make you feel good about your roster, make you feel included, and that's the sign of a good leadership piece. But this may be the time where you got to bring in a guy like a Daryl Sutter, like a Barry Trotz. Hey, people are throwing around guys like Tortorella and Quenneville. Tortorella is always going to be thrown around. I'm not here to tell you who the next coach of the Leafs is. I'm here to tell you that Sheldon Keefe does have his holes, but do you really want to disrupt this team? I mean, again, look at the points he put up. Kyle Dubas didn't put up the points, he put the team together. Sheldon Keefe put the strategies, the team together, and the combinations together to make one of the best, if not the best seasons ever out of any team in the East. But hey, Florida was there, Tampa was there. This was definitely the best the Leafs have ever done. How can you ignore that? So do I think Sheldon Keefe should go? I have this one as a maybe. I mean, you let me know down below in the comments, but I do think he's going to stay. I think there's one more hurrah in these two guys here. I don't see how you can disrupt and change something like the general manager and the coach after such a successful season. And I likely think they may have lost to the Stanley Cup champions for a third time. So it's really tough that you went out in the first round. It was very close, but I don't know. We'll see. He's 50-50. I think Dubas should stay. I could go either way with Keefe, but I think it would be a mistake to let him go right now. You already saw my opinion about the big 4 players. Now let's head over to capfriendly.com. This is going to give us a show of what the Toronto Maple Leafs look like next year. So we're looking at 22-23. Let's scroll down. What do we see? You got Mikheyev, who's a UFA. That one you're going to have to bring in. He's been darn good for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You got Kasha, you've got Engvall, you've got Spezza, you've got Blackwell, then you got Gio, you got Lyubushkin, Sandin, and Liljegren, some UFAs, some not. Then you have Jack Campbell, and if you scroll right down to the bottom, you see you got $7 million in cap space. That's not going to be enough to sign all of these players. So as we go through looking at the UFAs and the RFAs are different because you can just give them an offer and keep them. I don't think Engvall is going to go anywhere. I don't think Kasha is going to go anywhere. I think these guys are going to be relatively cheap deals, similar to their 1.25, maybe up to $1.5 million. I think they're safe. Spezza and Blackwell, I don't think they're going to be a casualty because why? You need to have league minimum guys to round it out. I don't think they're worth more than league minimum. I bet both of them re-sign. I think Spezza likes being here. I think he wants to win a cup in Toronto. So I bet he goes one more team-friendly deal. I think both these guys end up staying. I think it's the way to go. Kyle Clifford will end up staying. Look, he ends up going down after the first year of his contract extension instead of here. But again, depth piece. So there's a lot of cheap contracts here. Looking at the defense, you obviously have Muzzin and Riley. They're locked in. You got Brody. He's locked in. It's the increase to Riley's contract that's going to hurt this because you end up losing Giordano's 3.5, but Riley obviously has to go up due to that massive extension, which was deserved. Justin Hall, you all know my feelings about this guy. He's an absolute bum. Get the $2 million off the books. He sucks. If you're a Hall supporter, I have no idea how. Your name's Sheldon Keefe if you're a Hall supporter. Ilya Lyubushkin, likely going to get a raise, probably in the $2 million to $2.5 million range, especially since he played on the first line. If you want to look at a comparable like a Derek Forbort, here's a guy that played for the Jets on a very similar deal that Lyubushkin did. He ended up playing first line minutes with the Jets because that's just where he ended up getting pairing at least top 4 minutes with the Jets. He played that with Drew Doughty. He was kind of a $1 million guy. Then he ended up getting a $3 million hit. So I bet they end up using this as a comparable for Lyubushkin. Dubas may be able to get Lyubushkin in here for a $2 million range, but I think it's $2.5 million. It could be up to $3 million. I think Forbert's way overpaid, but let's end up seeing, so let's call it $2 to $3 million. You got to re-sign this guy. You can't let him go. Sandin, I think, again, RFA is going to get a little bump. I don't think it's a huge bump. He had a pretty good year, but you guys let me know down below what you think a guy with the point production like Sandin has. I think it's going to be $1.5 to $2 million on a bridge deal. I think they're going to want to see him play, and he's going to want to take that bit of a bridge deal, that cheaper one, to prove it. And Liljegren, same idea. Both these guys are the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs back end. Both need to be signed. But after you sign all these guys, you're well over that $7 million cap hit, and we haven't even talked about Jack Campbell yet. So what is Campbell worth? I had a video out there where I said he was worth about $5 to $5.5 million, but that's when he was going banana sandwich and was amazing. Then he fell off a cliff. And then he had a good playoffs. I think he outdueled Andre Vasilevsky. So I think Campbell's worth somewhere between $2 and $3.5 million easy. I don't know if he's worth over $3.5 million at this point. He's way too many roller coasters. The challenge here is going to be Peter Mrazek. So this is why I wouldn't kick out Dubas. The first thing he has to do is he has to get this Mrazek contract off the books. I don't know how he's going to do it, but it's got to go away. He also needs to get Justin Hall off the books. That's going to give him $5.8 million plus the $7 million. That's going to give him about $12 million to work with. Now he's working with something to keep the band together. Which one of these players are going to end up walking? Mikheyev is the one that's the biggest threat being a UFA, especially being 27 years old. He's not going to take a team-friendly discount here, guys. There's no reason. He's made it to age 27. He has he's got all-time high value. Think Brandon Tanev when he ended up leaving the Jets for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He ended up cashing in on a 6-year, $3.5 million deal. I can see Mikheyev smashing it for anywhere between a 4 and a 6-year deal in the $3 to $4 million range. Maybe it's about the $2.5 to $3 million range, but this will be where Mikheyev gets paid off. I don't think Mikheyev returns to the Leafs next year because I don't know how you return him back with the money he likely deserves. But let me know down below in the comments how you feel about Mikheyev. He's an important part of this team. But at 27 years old, when you've only played on $1.6 million deals, you're going to go and try to get your bank. I think Kasha and Engvall, no threat for them to leave. As we already talked about, Spezza, Blackwell, no threat for them to leave. Mark Giordano likely can't be re-signed with the amount of money. Maybe they do. Maybe the 38-year-old Giordano doesn't want to move. He takes a team-friendly deal. But I really think this is unlikely for Gio to end up staying. He might go home to Calgary. He might retire. Let's end up waiting and seeing what happens to Giordano. So where that brings me to is the big four. Do you need to trade one of the big four? I don't think you do, and I don't think you should, as long as you can go ahead and get the Mrazek contract and the Hall contract off the books. If you can't get them off the books and you're stuck with these two guys, no one will take them, then in order to get everything else done that you need, you may need to consider trading one of the big ones. And I think the one they would look at trading is obviously William Nylander. He's the most attractive one with the cap hit that he ends up having, but I just don't think that would work. I don't think you can get a better spend of money at $7 million by letting Nylander out, unless Dubas can go ahead and get a package where he's going to get a proven 2 players. I think you need to have at least 2 players that fit into your middle 6. I think you need to have 2 players similar to a guy like Ilya Mikheyev coming back to you that are going to be on a team-friendly deal and going to be able to contribute all up and down the roster. And then I think you need a prospect or a big pick for him, like a first round. So first, 2 players like Mikheyev is what you probably get back for Nylander. But it's tough because he's had an up and down season. So he's the only one I find that would be threatened by this. I don't think they can move Marner, Tavares, or Matthews regardless. So I think they're stuck. They're going to stay. Riley's going to stay. I think when it comes to goaltending, they need to pull a Carolina Hurricanes here, and they may need to ditch both guys. Jack Campbell's a great goalie. I have no issue with Jack Campbell right now. Now he's played better. He's a guesser in my opinion. He's not the answer long term, but he's developed for 2 years under the Leafs. So if he takes a team-friendly deal, leave him. But if it was up to me, I'd be heavily shopping the goalie market. It's not to say I don't love him, and I know that's going to break the hearts of a lot of Leafs fans, but you got to do what the Canes did when they let Nedeljkovic and they let, who else was it? Let me know who was there with Nedeljkovic when they ended up booting him. They brought in Freddie Anderson, who you know very well. It worked out very well for them. Sometimes you got to identify when a goalie needs to be upgraded. And if in order to upgrade your goalie, that means moving Nylander and that means losing Mikheyev, getting a few other pieces back, and then you get a big upgrade to goalie, hey, that's a good way to go. So we'll talk about goalies. We'll talk about places of where they're going to go. But at the end of the day, to summarize this, Leafs fans, I think Dubas should stay. I do think Sheldon Keefe should stay, but it's 50-50. I think most of these players will be re-signed. I think the band stays back together. I think Mikheyev's at the biggest risk. Giordano retires, goes somewhere else. I think Campbell may either be re-signed or shipped off, and Mrazek and Hall, you got to get them out of there in order to open up cap space. Did I get it right? Let me know down below, Leafs fans.